our show, our YouTube podcast shouldn't be political. The problem is, like you said, that our healthcare system has been so ingrained with politics that it's hard to have these conversations without bringing politics in. So that's probably what we're going to touch so much today on policy and RFK and these government agencies as we go through these topics today.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of then, we can't not talk about what happened. It happened a little while ago, but it's a big deal with the measles outbreak, right?
Yep.
And we've heard that, and again, it's going to touch on politics, like you said, but like we've got to talk about what happened. Should we be concerned about it? Is there what's going on?
I feel like that was coming. Like, I mean, when we think about the measles outbreaks, I feel like every single year there's an outbreak, but there's been a lot of attention to this one in particular. I hope it doesn't have to do with politics, but I do feel like there's a political aspect to it, especially since RFK has been appointed as secretary about a month and a half ago at this point. But if we look at measles outbreaks, they're cyclical. Almost every year there's about 100, 200 cases. Most of the time they're non-lethal. So some of these kids will have a rash, they'll have a fever, they'll be better in no time, and the measles is gone. And then it's completely normal, these cyclical things. The problem right now is the problem is the death of the kid that just recently happened, which, by the way, I saw do you guys see the video of the interview with the parents?
I did. No.
Yeah, so there's an interview with the parents, and the kid, I think it was a girl, I believe. The girl died from pneumonia that was secondary to measles. However, when they had 4 kids, the 4 kids got the measles. The first 3 recuperated super quickly, but the other one, it just lagged and lagged. So they took him to the ER, and I believe the doctor said, just go home, gave him Tylenol, and they'll be fine. And they just kept getting worse. And I think there has to be some sort of malpractice around this case, though. Because I don't think that little girl received the emergency care that they needed in that moment. And I think the media has played a huge role pointing out that they were unvaccinated, that they were from I believe the Mennonite community. I'm pretty sure when I was looking at the interview. And, now they're putting all the blame into the unvaxxers. And obviously it's just, now it's become from a regular outbreak to propaganda. And now they're pushing for the vaccinations. They're saying they're shipping all these vaccines down to Texas so we can get a vaccination campaign going again. So I don't know. It's a little bit, it's scary for a parent though.
So just to confirm, can you be vaccinated against measles and get measles?
Yes. Well, certain cases. You shouldn't if the vaccine works, but some people might contract measles even with the vaccine.
But you're saying that the little girl in this case, actually the cause of death on the death certificate is most likely not measles.
No, it was pneumonia secondary to measles, and that happened after.
So therefore it would kind of seem as though there was a compromise in the immune system overall.
Yes, exactly. That's what it's looking at. And based on the interview of the parents, I don't think the kid received the care that she needed.
Interesting. And I want to touch base real quick for people who are listening that might not know this. Can we talk about what does it mean to be immune compromised? Why do some people handle measles fine and some don't? Why would some people handle the flu fine and some don't? Can any of you share your thoughts?
I mean, immunocompromised. So there's 2 ways you can look at immunocompromised. It could be the people that are struggling with cancer. They're going through some sort of treatment, which their defenses are down because the actual treatment is killing the host, essentially. And then there's immunocompromised people that are really not healthy people, but they're not sick, but their immune system doesn't function well.
But they may not even know.
They might not even know it. These are the people that are not sleeping well. They're malnutritioned. They're taking a lot of medication, so their body's not healthy, but it's not sick. They just don't know it. That's really what an immunocompromised person is. So there's a lot of immunocompromised people right now.
Interesting. You guys probably see them all the time coming into your office, right? Can you tell oftentimes when you're adjusting somebody if somebody is immunocompromised? Like, that's a random question. But
No, I mean, what we could see in a lot of patients is they're under a lot of stress, and usually we know that at some point the sickness is going to hit.
Sure. also just knowing a good history on that patient, over time, getting to know them and how quickly they get sick, how quick they fight those, typical illness, a cold or a flu, lets you know who's going to be more easily susceptible to certain things over another person. But just looking at them, not necessarily. But then you have patients like your HIV patients and stuff, there's immunocompromised.
So what's fascinating when it comes to vaccines is vaccines do, whether they help or not, which we can argue that all day long, both sides, but whether they help or not, there is going to be a certain level of toxicity that come with them, correct?
Absolutely. There's a lot of ingredients in a lot of them. And while they've done a better job of getting rid of like thimerosal and heavy metals in a lot of them, there's still certain vaccines that do contain heavy metals. And I believe the flu vaccine, it's one of the few that still has either lead or thimerosal in them. And you can request, if you're a fan of vaccines, you can request a dose that doesn't have those ingredients though.
That's super important for people who don't understand and realize
Yep.
and talk to their doctor about. So interestingly enough, then, if you're going to get vaccinated, if you do have a lower immune system, right, that could push something over the edge for you.
Yes, because you're also got to look at immunity, and you also have to look at toxicity in general. Okay. So, for example, there's something called bioaccumulation, which we talked a lot before. But when you look at a kid or you're looking at an adult, you got to look at all the cumulative stressors that the body's under, not only the vaccination and the toxicity that comes from it, but you got to look at what type of food are they eating. Are they close to a field that they're throwing herbicides in it and the body's absorbing all those toxins? Or you got to look at how much trauma the body's been through over time. All these things keep accumulating, and then you put a vaccine in them, and this could be the last thing that messes their immune system up. Unfortunately.
So let me ask you guys this, is obviously we've talked before how, and this general stance is if you want to do vaccines, do vaccines. That's a personal choice. You guys have talked about this.
Absolutely.
What are some things that you guys might recommend if you are somebody who decides to go ahead and vaccinate? How can you make your body stronger before and after you do decide to get a vaccine?
Which, by the way, if you vaccinate or not, like you said, it's a personal decision, but there's repercussions with both choices. If you do not choose to vaccinate, you got to make decisions that are going to get you stronger and healthier. And if you choose to vaccinate, it doesn't mean you can live a reckless life doing whatever you want with your body. So, for example, if a kid is vaccinated, and let's assume they're vaccinated against measles, mumps, rubella, it doesn't mean they can live an unhealthy life and just eat whatever they want and put anything in their body that they want. They're still, if they contract the measles, which they still can, even with the vaccine, if they want to have a better outcome, they have to be, you got to eat healthy, whole food, same thing. We got to get them sleeping better. A lot of these kids, they don't sleep. They're plugged into an iPad. So their immune system and their body never has a chance to recover. And then on top of that, they have high levels of sugar in their bloodstream from all the crap that they're eating. So that's a lot of toxicity in the body. So just because you choose to vaccinate, it's not a green card so you can actually live a reckless life and do whatever you want.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I like to sit down and have that conversation because each individual is different, whether it's their body, their medical history, or their own desire to vaccinate or not. And if they are in the camp where they decide that that's what they want to do, I do try to give them supplements and things that they can take to boost that immune system so that at least they're in the best shape possible to then get vaccinated and do what they want in terms of making sure they're protected in the way they want. So I do like when we hear these things on the news because it prompts people to, start paying attention and then start making those decisions for themselves.
Yeah, and what you were talking about oftentimes, and I've heard you use this analogy before, but I'd love it if you shared it again, is like our bodies are kind of like a cup, right? Can you kind of share that analogy with us?
So we talked about bioaccumulation. That's one part that people have to understand. And when it comes to vaccination, that's a very important concept for every single parent and for researchers in general. Like, it's not the vaccine that can become the tipping point of a body having a bad response. It's all the cumulative effects. The other part is we cannot focus so much on the thing outside of the body, but rather we got to focus our energy on the host, making sure that your body's stronger, it's healthier, it's more resilient. And I think the conversation when it comes to vaccinations and measles, it has to shift from the actual measles to the actual host. I think when we start to transition the conversation, that's when we're going to start to have better health outcomes.
Yeah.
Because, for example, when we look at measles, and you can look at this in the CDC, if a kid is malnutrition, the chances of them having adverse reactions or adverse outcomes from measles, it's extremely high. They're eating crap. But a very strong kid that's eating healthy, it's very healthy, it's very hard for measles kid to kill that kid, you know, from a biological perspective. So we got to focus more on the host, on the kid per se.
I had a friend who used to say you have to make yourself inhospitable, and they talked a lot about so they studied a lot. My friend, who's a nurse practitioner and stuff, they studied a lot about Lyme disease, right, which is a parasite basically, right? And she was saying like so many people are affected by Lyme disease and parasites in general, but then some people aren't. Well, why not? It's the same thing, just like you're saying, measles is the same thing. Some affects, some don't. Why do they pick some people and don't? It's exactly what
it's the host. At the end of the conversation, it's the host. But again, we got to go back, regardless if you choose to vaccinate or not, for measles, you still got to, as a parent, and again, I'm not a dad, right? But that's the goal with the future. It's my responsibility to make sure that my kid is the strongest kid possible, that they're the healthiest they can be with the choices that I'm making for them. That's extremely important for me. You know, from a political perspective, you have government agencies that they still have to be, they got to do the research on these vaccines and the toxicity. For example, Japan gives you the option to actually not take the MMR vaccine, but rather take the measles vaccine and then the mumps vaccine and then the rubella vaccine. So they actually split them up, because unfortunately the MMR vaccine is one of the most controversial shots in the United States. And again, whether the research points that they do cause certain things or they don't cause certain things, it's hard to debate a mom that saw their kid being a perfectly healthy baby and suddenly they get a triple shot and a week later the kid stops talking and goes to nonverbal. I don't care about the research. You know, at the end of the day, that's the experience from the mom.
I was reading the other day something about vaccines, and you guys were doing the research. And Japan is one of the country. It is the country with the lowest mortality rate when it comes to children's death. So they must be doing something right as well.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, it's very interesting because you can ask to have a different schedule, for vaccines. Yep. You can slow it down. Like, I think I read somewhere, maybe you know this, Dr. Anders, is like how many vaccines when we were kids did we have compared to in our first 2 years of life? Or
now it's over 60 shots right now.
Oh, in your first year or two.
Yeah, which is insane.
It's very low.
You would have thought, you know, being a developed nation which has great hygiene, that our vaccine schedules would be a lot less compared to other countries that don't have the same technology, same science, research, hygiene, compared to us. However, we're probably one of the countries with the biggest and largest vaccine schedule out of any other country in the world. That is not good. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these bacteria and viruses, most of them, they don't exist anymore.
Yeah. And talk to me real quick. I don't think we ever got back to it. Is like if you think of your body as a glass of water, and vaccines have some toxins, that food has toxins in it, our environment has toxins in it. What happens to our body then? Yeah,
over time, that the toxicity level is so much that your body cannot detox it, get rid of it. So your body's going to start to create compensation mechanisms. That's where we start to see cancer or autoimmune conditions. Now your body cannot pump that out, unfortunately. And unfortunately, most of us in general don't know how to detox with the body, right? You know, unfortunately. And we just keep putting toxicity into that cup.
We never empty the cup at all.
We never empty the cup, unfortunately.
So how can we empty, what are some of you guys, all of you all can answer this, is like, what do you do to stay healthy? What do you do to detox your body? What do you do to get rid of those toxins that maybe you chose to have, maybe you didn't choose to have? Maybe it's because we live in Florida and there's environmental stuff all over the place. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, do you have any protocols for detoxing?
I mean, it just depends on what you're detoxing.
Just general health.
Detoxing is going to be lifestyle and health changes, diet changes overall, getting rid of removing from the diet sugars, preservatives, and things like that. But then you also need to detox out your different organs that are now holding those chemicals in that you've had over a lifetime, over that span of time, and get those clean. So that's where I generally have a protocol.
Cleanses are good. Fasting is phenomenal as well. Just water fast.
What about sweating? We live in Florida.
Saunas are great too for detoxing.
The easiest for us.
I mean, you can get good detox like kits from different companies like Dr. Pampas. Dr. Pampa is a chiropractor, but practices mostly functional medicine. He has a great detox program as well. And you just buy the kit. I don't know how, I think it's a week or two, something like that. And it does a great job at taking those toxins out of the body and pretty much getting rid of them.
Does chiropractic help you, like, not that it makes you detox, but does it open detox pathways?
I mean, when we look at the lymphatic system, absolutely. It's super connected to the immune system and the thymic tissue. And you can work on different parts of the spine to get the nervous system to talk better to the thymic tissue and to the lymphatic system, so you can drain a lot of that stuff out. Yeah, usually when, for example, with somebody sick, we want them to detox and get the lymph system, the lymph nodes and the thymic tissue working better. I usually want to work on the upper thoracic area.
Okay.
That's an area that's extremely connected to the thymic tissue of your body.
Interesting.
I've seen you very sick. It's not, I mean, you do all these things, and I've seen you very sick while dating you. And I remember, I thought, you get a fever.
It was stress from dealing with
in
you.
Puerto Rico. Let's just put some Valparaiso.
Vicks.
That's how you cure everything, everyone. By the way, stop listening to these two. But then I remember you like stay out, and then you wrap in like 3 blankets, and I'm like, I need
like
to
hell.
sweat this fever, and then that's what. And then I was like, this dude is nuts. But then the next day you'll be like, let's go, we're good.
Whenever I get sick, I just I'm waiting for that fever. I was like, come on, let's
Where
go.
most people try to repress.
Yes, that's the thing. So you see, I'm like, what can I take so this, like, my
Goes down,
temperature goes down? But then you just
I try to
like,
push
let's
my body
ride
to the
it.
limit until I get the fever. Once I get it, I try to wrap myself until I sweat it as much as I can. And usually your body responds very quickly. But again, we've been taught the opposite. We've been told that fever is not good. It feels bad. Take a Tylenol or ibuprofen, whatever it does. Suppress it. And then you're going to deal with the fever for like 7 days because you don't let your body heal itself.
I had a nurse tell me that unless it goes above, and this is not advice. This is just what somebody told me. They said it was something like until your fever gets to be like 102 or something, like let it run so that your body is detoxing. But then you want to be careful once it gets higher to make sure that you don't get
neurological damage or seizure. And I think kids, it's even higher than that.
I think
I would say 102, 104. I mean, ideally, it's your body's natural defense to kill off any bacteria or microbes. But at the same time, when you get to elevated temperatures, it denatures the enzymes your body uses for natural processes, and that's where it gets problematic.
Yep.
Gotcha.
To keep track of it. Going back to the vaccines, we're talking about a different schedule. There's a great book that I was reading. It's called the Vaccine Friendly Plan by Dr. Paul Thomas. He actually goes each chapter, he goes over one different vaccine and whether you should or should not consider it. He talks about the vitamin K shot. He talks about MMR. He talks about hepatitis shots. And it's great for parents that are trying to figure out, do I want to vaccinate? Do I not want to vaccinate? Do I want a different plan? But it gives you the information so you can make an informed decisions, because at the end of the day, whether you choose to vaccinate or not, the decision has to come from knowledge, not from fear or ignorance.
Exactly.
Well, and really, I'm pretty sure all 50 states have some policy that requires kids to get vaccinated.
Yeah, they do.
If they're entering into at least a public schools or
There's exemptions,
into
though.
and it has to be an exemption. It's not just a choice.
It's not like you want it and that's it.
You
Yeah.
don't have the natural choice. You actually have to go through some loopholes in order to get that exemption. But most kids are getting it. And I think you get two shots, one early on and then one by like 6
For the MMR?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you're
It's
good
2
for
shots.
life, or that's the idea, although there's very little testing to account for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is you have to be willing to, like you said, research and actually go against the grain a little bit. And Genesis, you might be able to speak to this a little bit.
It's a tough
it
conversation.
can be hard to do that, but what can you, like, what would you say to somebody who's considering just looking into something and thinking maybe I can do something different. I know you've had people shame you for things you've done or said or whatever. Like, how can you encourage people to, like, it's okay to be different, it's okay to look, it's okay to research, it's okay to make different decisions than you're being told you have to?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had conversations in the past few weeks with my best friend. Just had a baby about a month and a half ago. She lives in Wesley Chapel. We know each other from our whole life in Puerto Rico, and we all got, at least me and her, we were talking all the vaccines back then, and knock on wood, we're healthy. But I mean, her baby was just born, and she was just telling me the story. I was just listening, because with those topics too, you know, people can be very sensitive. You don't know where they're coming from. So I try to be.
We shouldn't be.
I think should be the opposite. We should be more willing to talk about it. But one of the things that they were telling me is that right when their baby boy was born, or right before, like hours when they were discussing what they were going to do, the doctor said, asked them, do you want to do the hepatitis B shot? And both of them together, where the doctor said, we're not going to do it. Mm-hmm. The third time, they ended up doing a C-section. Mom is recovering. And then with the dad, they take the baby, and with the dad, they asked that without mom. And then that's when my friend's husband, it's our friend too, got like very defensive. It's like, my wife and I, we said no. And then they kind of basically made it feel like, I'm sorry, my dog, distracting me, going back. I just, that scenario that she was describing to me, or they were telling me, that I find that very disrespectful, especially wife not being there. We already made a decision. Like, I get that you're the nurse and you're the doctor, but like, who are you to bring this question again and trying to shame you for the decisions that you as parents, I'm sure already did your research to like say no in the first place. So I was just listening, and I was like, you know, for me, I was like, that's crazy. I cannot even imagine if I was in you guys' position, I would have flipped or say something else. But at the end of the day, going back to, it's a personal decision. Yeah, you know, good if you want to do it or not, but we should not be shaming others for. Yeah, we can all listen and have a conversation, but that's the line.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation, right? You have a baby. It's the most precious thing you ever create in your life. And you're battling these questions like, should I do this? Should I? And
they make you feel wrong for choosing.
Yeah, it's tough. So, you know, if I was a dad and I was about to have a kid, I'm asking myself, let's say I was in this moment in time with the measles outbreak. I got to look, first of all, what is measles, to understand what it is. What symptoms will my kid experience if they contracted this thing? Once I figure out what would the symptoms look like, how severe can they get, and what's the worst case scenario, and then based on the worst case scenario, what type of treatments can this baby get in case that we ended up in the worst case scenario? What's the mortality rate? How often does this happen? That's the other question. It's like, is this a 1 in 10 kids, or is this 1 in a million? And then once I get all that information, I ask the other question, is like, if I choose not to vaccinate, what's the worst case scenario? Mm-hmm. What are the symptoms going to look like? And if I choose to vaccinate, what's the worst case scenario? What are the symptoms or the side effects that my kid can get from vaccinating? How often does this happen? What's the chances? 1 in 100, 1 in 200? And then you weight them out and you're like, all right, based on the data that I have, it makes more sense not to vaccinate, because the chances of my kid getting injured by a vaccines are way higher than him contracting measles in Florida, where, again, it's a very healthy environment. So as a parent, you got to ask these tough questions so you can actually make informed decisions. And, you know, you got to read a lot of books, and there's great books. I mean, I have 2 right here. The one I just mentioned, The Vaccine Friendly Plan. The other book that's very good, it's How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor. These are medical doctors that created these books. And as a mom, you read them, or as a dad, and it gives you a lot of feedback where you actually can make a choice and feel good about the choice you just made regardless of what people say about it.
And what I hate, obviously I'm not a doctor like you guys, But you know what I hate, and going back to that COVID time where everything that you say, it's, oh, that's you going against science. It's like we cannot question science. Is that a thing?
I thought the whole purpose of science was to
It's to
question things.
continue to
Question it, yeah.
to research. And I mean, going back to when the whole COVID thing happened, they said the best thing that you could do for someone that contracted COVID is put them on a ventilator. Later, people were dying for putting people on a ventilator. Then they were saying, people, you get the vaccine, you're not going to spread it. So if you're unvaccinated, you're the one that is spreading it. And then science came back later, and then they were, okay, so actually everyone can spread COVID. So what is a vaccine for? So I'm like, I think we have to walk away from don't say that, because that's science
No
that you're
absolutes.
going against. And it's like, they're not God. And at the same time, these people are constantly researching. So,
You know what I appreciate about your office in general is the fact that you guys are some of the most open doctors to listening. You don't say, I know everything and I'm not going to research and I'm not going to read. You look, you read, you research. You have your opinions, but you're always open to learning.
Absolutely.
And if your doctor's not like that, it's probably a problem.
And the best part is when we do learning, it's not like we get a pharmaceutical rep that teaches us things. We actually have to look for it and read the research and come up with our own conclusions based on that research. Some of these medical doctors, they get a pharmaceutical rep comes in and they're like, this is the literature. Read it based on the new medication we just created. Make a non-biased decision about this medication and push it to your patients. I mean, this is not speculation. This is like true.
and not only that, just because you got a degree 20 years ago doesn't mean that you guys are not doing continuing education where basically every year you guys need credits to stay up to date with what's actually going on in the science world. And I mean, there's techniques out there that, I mean, torque release technique, I don't know, like you guys do torque release, but people sometimes when I get a phone call and they're like, you guys do manual adjustment because that's the real thing. Like, I want to make sure I don't like those tools, those things. They don't know, but they've heard about it. And I'm like, only if you knew also the research behind it. But people are just so stuck in their bubble that in my box, this is it, not willing to be up to date with
To open
the
up,
things.
yep.
Interesting. Well, let's shift over and talk a little bit about our environment in general, right? And the hidden toxins that exist. I mean, we're talking about toxins that are coming to us through shots, but let's talk about toxins that are coming in through our food, right? And we're going to talk specifically about Roundup and glyphosates. So tell me what you've heard about them, whether like most people are going to be like, glycol what? Like,
Yeah,
But they do know Roundup.
I know Roundup, and I know Monsanto, and I know the company that owns Monsanto, which is a pharmaceutical company. What's the name?
I don't know.
Bayer.
I told you already.
Bayer.
Bayer.
We're
Bayer.
still confused on the
Bayer.
enunciation.
So Bayer, they're the ones that own Monsanto and Roundup. A pharmaceutical company. It's the largest herbicide in the world.
Responsible for giving people cancer. That's amazing.
Yeah, cancer causing.
And there was a study done, right? What percentage did they say that Americans have? What percentage?
80% of the people in the study had glyphosates. What is it?
Glyphosates,
Glyphosates in their urine, and a third of those people in the study, third were kids.
Who play in the grass.
So
in the yard,
how do we get that in our system, like in the world?
Number one is the food that we eat.
I'm not drinking Roundup.
Yeah, right. It's
Maybe I am.
The food that we eat. Number one.
Exposure when you're treating your own lawn, which is where you go do your weed eating and you clear your lawn. And if you have children and they go play and their balls running into the bush and kids are all over the place.
Yeah.
They're getting exposed. You were probably exposed because if you also think about while you're spraying the stuff, they spray back at you, the particles in the air that you're still breathing in while you're even spraying.
I wonder why that is not banned in the United States.
Did they change like the ingredient, like what it's made of, Roundup?
I'm
Because
pretty
I
sure
see
no.
it every time I go to a Home Depot. I thought we would take them out.
Well, that should be banned, number one. And I think RFK is trying to get those things, herbicides banned in the United States for sure. But one of the biggest issue with this is that it's hard because we know it can cause cancer, but man, imagine a person just like us having cancer and try to prove in Supreme Court that what caused it was Roundup. That's a uphill battle against people that have billions and billions of dollars to spend. By the time if you win the settlement, you already died. You're done.
That's been going on forever, that class action with if you've been exposed to Roundup in the last, I've been hearing that for 20 years. Something is just crazy.
Still happening.
It's still going on.
Check this out. This is something that we talked about before about the federal agencies being captured by corporate. For example, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, in 2020, they found that glyphosate does not pose a serious health risk and it's not likely to cause cancer in humans. EPA. So the same agencies that are supposed to protect you are actually making sure that these big corporate conglomerates, their money and their things are secured over somebody's life.
Yeah.
So corporate capture is the one thing that RFK is going against. And he spent most of his lifetime suing the EPA. That's probably one of the worst agencies out there. Like Roundup, I mean, seriously, you're saying that it does not cause cancer? I mean, that's stupid at this point.
No, absolutely.
So it's in our food.
Yep.
Is that why it's important to eat organic of certain things, or like?
Absolutely. I mean, it should. I mean, or when we think about organic foods, what we're trying to do is make sure that there's a minimal consumption of these things. My concern is how close are these fields from each other that one thing doesn't move to the other one.
1 inch this way, you're good. 1 inch this way, you're bad.
At this point, you might as well just build your own thing in your backyard and make sure you don't have Roundup,
Right.
I've seen some news articles that say that people that live in the Midwest or in places that they grow a lot of this corn or crops,
especially the soy and corn.
they're more likely to get exposed to these chemicals and develop these cancers. And it's not only cancer; they can cause not only cancer, it can cause endocrine disruption like thyroid issues. It can cause infertility. I mean, you name it.
Liver damage.
Actually, infertility is a huge thing that has been on the rise like crazy.
Crazy, yep.
Like when you guys were like younger, do you remember there were not people who were having trouble with getting pregnant? Like
not at all. Not at all. That's
If
not
anything,
normal.
It was the opposite.
It was the opposite.
that part.
Yeah, they were always having
again.
kids. I mean, we're living so unnatural nowadays. It's just insane how unnatural it is. Like we're seeing all the crazy things. We're seeing autism rates go up. We're seeing infertility rates go up, obesity rates go up, cancer rates going up, cardiovascular disease going up. It seems like the more money we throw at the problem, the more problems we have. The more science we put on the problem, the more issues we have.
Not how it's supposed to
So
go.
that can be so depressing though. All right, so think about this. Like, say I am a parent, but like, a parent or mom, a dad, or even just for yourself, you're listening to this and you're like, great, no matter what I do, there's toxins in my food, there's toxins in the air, there's toxins everywhere. I almost feel like Dr. Seuss. Like, what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, that mindset is tough because in Puerto Rico, from our country, that's a very typical mindset. I'm still going to die of it. So I might as well not even put in the effort to get better. I understand that you're still going to die from it and you're going to get exposed to it somehow, but just don't try to kill yourself in the process. Minimize it.
Slow it down.
Yeah, slow it down. Minimize the risk. If you go on your own terms. Don't try to kill yourself in the process,
I agree.
So what can we do?
I mean, it starts at every individual's home. It can't be that you're looking for other people to make different choices to improve your health. It's like, what are we not doing in our home? And so even if we're looking at Roundup, which is easily picked up at a Home Depot, Lowe's, your typical local home repair type store, it's easy to pick up. It's the go-to for the yard and for weeding your yard. But then, here in Florida, if you do it during the rainy season, now my yard then the rain comes, it contaminates the water in my area. And so that's my fault. Because now I'm affecting my whole neighborhood. I'm affecting the local water source. So just in that one way, what I'm doing is affecting people exponentially.
Absolutely.
And if you start to now compound the different things that we're doing here that just aren't great for us, before you know it, it's like no wonder we're all dying.
We're all a mess, yeah.
And everybody's we're doing it to each other every single day. It's rough. But a lot of times it's not purposeful. It's not malicious. No. It comes from a government who doesn't inform us properly, who makes us believe something is safe when it's not.
don't.
And one of the things, going off what you just said, my dad was here beginning of January. We were coming back from a trip, and he was gonna cook. He's actually a really good cook, and he was looking at all of our ingredients. He's like, coconut oil, really? Where are my dad?
Oh.
Where's he liked this pan that is like he has at home. I'm sure it has Teflon. He's like,
definitely has Teflon.
what is this material? And I'm like, Dad, that is ceramic, or that is stainless steel. And then I had lard because we were gonna fry a few things. He's like, lard, really? Like in Spanish is manteca. And I'm like, but where? We're like normal, like mazola, corn. And then I was like trying to explain to him because it's not, he doesn't know, right? So
well, I think he knows, but he got brainwashed along the way.
Yeah, brainwashed. But then, needless to say, he goes back to Puerto Rico, and then he gives me a call, and he's like, I threw away all that Teflon shit. Like this is where I bought that ceramic one that Andres got. I love that thing, non-stick, and I don't have I have stainless steel. And to me, it was just a small change, but I was like, there you go, Dad. You know, like you can do those small things because you learned that at home. Even maybe you're going to cause some friction. Why did you do it that way? Why? But then people start to understand, man, these people look healthy. It seems like they're doing the right thing. They did the research. I want to mimic that. At least that's how I am.
You have to walk if you want to change people's perspective, you got to walk the walk, you know?
Yeah.
And talk the talk.
And there's going to be friction. It's normal. Like, people don't know. But then start, and people are going to be like, okay. And then to me, that was just a huge win when my dad's like, I threw away all that shit.
Yeah.
I have to say that because that's how he said it.
I think we got to do basic things as a population. We got to move as much as we can to organic. Whether organic is the best or not, it's a different point. It's a whole different conversation, but do your best. You know, get away from the Teflons, right? What's it called? I forgot the name of it. Yeah, the BPAs, you know, cutting boards that are plastic. I mean, you're chopping that up and eating it up.
You know what? We had those at one point.
I had
life.
those
too.
Even when I was supposed to be the picture of health, I still did the plastic cutting boards, and I said, "This is so easy to wash," and I never
You didn't think about it.
I never thought about that I would be chopping particles of plastic and putting them in my body. Something so simple, but then something clicked. I read it. I was like, "Oh my God, this makes a lot of sense." Now I look back, knowing that information, I still kept doing it. That is my fault. I'm a dumbass at that point, right? But if I know this information, I do my best to get rid of it. Then I'm like, all right, I'm making a difference, whether it's small or big.
But if you pile 10 small differences,
There you go.
Well, and what gets me
Then you
with
got a
that drives me nuts is, once again, it all boils down to who's feeding us the information and is it correct. So he's got the cutting board, and you go, okay, I'm not going to be using that type of cutting board, and that means that I probably shouldn't be microwaving food in plastic containers. But
we don't microwave at all, but we're weirdos. So
Yeah, that's pushing it. But yeah,
You're not the ones. We met other people.
well,
that
and you don't get it, and then you
we
go
actually
to the
don't
store
own a microwave, so
and
that's
you don't
why.
realize the water that you're drinking out of the plastic water bottle.
Oh.
Same thing. But then
It is endless.
you got the other people go, well, I don't even drink water. I just drink tea, which I do. So now,
But
the
then you
tea
got
bags
mold in
are
some of them
also
all.
doing it. They're finding that the plastic
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
in the tea bags is also finding its way to your brain. It's interesting to me that we're almost gearing ourselves to this place where everything is so artificial that, you know, you're now seeing women give birth to babies with plastic in them at birth.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to have plastic babies someday. Like,
I know.
It's crazy.
These are what they call forever chemicals.
Yeah.
They stay in your body.
But, you know, here's the thing. You can go down the path of, like you said earlier, doesn't matter, I'm going to die anyway. There's nothing I can do. Or you can decide I'm going to make choices.
It's a choice.
One after another until they pile up. We started with the very first thing we did, we stopped eating high fructose corn syrup. Number one thing. We just stopped eating that. One thing.
And then it usually creates like a spiral. Right. Once you start to feel better and you're doing healthy things, you're like, what's the next thing I got to look for?
What's the next thing?
We have to have the responsibility to say, let me start with one little thing.
Right.
No, I remember the first healthy thing that I did and this was probably back in 2012 when I went to chiropractic school, because again, I was in a different bubble. But when I went to chiropractic school,
you were so young, you were still eating ramen noodles. And
I was eating crap. doing everything unhealthy. But I would say the first thing that I did that was healthy, we started using coconut oil.
Yeah.
And this was back in 2012. When I went back to Puerto Rico to talk about coconut oil and
We're ahead
avocado
of
oil, they're like,
times.
what are you talking about? Because coconut oil, I mean, a lot of the younger
wasn't popular then.
it wasn't
No,
popular.
no.
Nobody knew what we were talking about. That was the first thing that I did healthy-wise.
But you know what? So many small things can really add up. And don't ever think you can't do anything.
Little
Even
things.
like, okay, you get non-organic strawberries, soak them in baking soda,
Mm-hmm.
water, and it takes away, I think it's like 50 or 80% of the
Cleans it up.
pesticides on it. Like simple things.
Yeah, and people have to understand it both ways, right? If you do a lot of little healthy things over time, that accumulates and you get healthier. Just like if you start to do a lot of little sick things or you start to do unhealthy things over time, that accumulates into sickness and disease, which is the concept of bioaccumulation again, right? When we think about kids, right? Because this month we're talking about kids a lot. Let's say you put a vaccine. That's one thing. You tally it up. And then you give them some sort of medication, let's say Tylenol, after the birth because they had a fever, tally it up. And then you give them crappy foods, right? Let's say Flintstone vitamins. Another,
Hey,
tally
I
it
took those
up.
as a kid.
And then this kid is drinking water that has fluoride in it or washing their teeth and fluoride. Tally it up. And then they're exposed to all this radiation and waves and everything. Tally it up. And then when you look at it and you start tallying everything up, you're like, oh my goodness, my kid has been exposed to these things every single day for the last 7 years. And we know that the neurodevelopment of a kid is essentially the first 7 to 10 years of life. No wonder our kids are so sick. But if we could have taken those tallies and we were more conscious about them, we'd be like, all right, we can remove that.
You didn't give them as readily.
Exactly, right? But most people don't think non-linear. They're not thinking about the things that are tallying it up. They only look at the immediate effect. I gave them the vaccine. Since they didn't die, I guess it's good.
Yeah. Were you the one who told me that you can actually make your cup bigger if you're thinking about the cup having toxins, like your body having toxins? Was that you or
I could
somebody
have,
else?
but I remember.
I feel like you did. I feel like you're like, but you can make your body be able to like handle more through chiropractic care.
Oh
and
yeah,
some
you can
other
make it
stuff.
more resilient. Yeah, absolutely. Resiliency. Your body can handle a lot more. I mean, it's adaptability, right? It goes back to the concept of adaptability. My adaptability 10 years ago was probably not the same one as I have today. The more healthy things you do over time, the more adaptable you are to toxins and stress. So you can get better over time, but you got to put in the work.
Explain that a little bit more, because so your body becomes more adaptable. What does that look like? What does
I mean,
that
it gets
mean?
stronger. Let's say, I'll give you the example of sickness, just getting sick in general, flu, whatever it is. 10 years ago, everybody got sick. I probably got sick as well. I was not very adaptable to the virus, and I would just get sick very quickly. 10 years down the road, your immune system starts to train, right? And you start to give it healthy things as well. It gets more adaptable.
It's like you're becoming a better athlete.
Yeah,
because
literally.
Sport
You
is
become superhuman.
immunity.
Yeah, so you can build it up. You can train your body to become better.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's go into this whole idea of, okay, you guys have heard of the SNAP program, right? So people, SNAP, public.
Oh, snap.
Oh,
SNAP.
The public food assistance.
Public
yes, I
food
have heard
assistance,
of
SNAP.
that.
So you've heard of this, right?
Yep.
And right now, people get food stamps or whatever, and they can go buy pretty much anything in any store.
I think the only thing you cannot get is cigarettes and alcohol.
Dang it.
So to quote you, they can buy a whole lot of food-like substances. And food-like substances are often cheaper than food.
Cheap and a lot for a lot of kids in the house.
Like Fruit Loops?
Like
Yeah.
Fruit Loops.
And a lot of
and
soda.
not the Canadian version either.
No. And a lot of soda.
A lot of soda. A lot of bags of chips.
Pre-made things
Crackers.
because,
Dino
don't have the time
nuggets.
to cook.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think the only two things you cannot buy, it's alcohol and cigarettes
Okay.
in a supermarket. However, you can buy a lot of other deadlier things in the supermarket that you're feeding your things, and all that is subsidized by the government. So the government that's having a conversation about chronic disease and Medicaid costs because of all this chronic illness, they're not taking consideration that they're actually the ones creating the problem in the beginning by feeding these people the bad food that's in the market.
Well, incentivizing it by making it cheaper.
And which is even worse.
Because you get however much you get a month. If you say, well, I can get 10 bags of food for this much, or I can get 1 bag of food for this much, what are you going to do?
I read, I think it was social media. I read somebody brought a great idea. It's like, why don't you take the people that have the SNAP program, right? And you create a warehouse just like a Costco, but it's cheaper, it's subsidized, it's cheaper, but it's Whole Foods. You can go in there only just to buy these things. That'd be nice.
So I heard that they're changing the program or talking about changing the program. Can you tell me a little bit
They're
about
working
that?
with the FDA right now.
Okay.
They're working with the FDA to make sure that there's certain foods that people should not get in the program that are not healthy. They're not healthy right now.
Do you know what types of food those might be? Because to be honest, it's probably 80% of the grocery store right now. So like, what are you gonna do?
That's the problem. Actually, I mean, that is the problem is that the program is designed to help families afford the food they need to give themselves and their children proper nutrition. And if they're able to then instead purchase Oreo cookies, some Lunchables, and these are all things riddled in preservatives, dyes, chemicals that you can't even pronounce on the back. Now we're making the kids sick. We're throwing sugar at them, which is just increasing.
And now they're
going to
need to use their Medicaid.
Like crazy. They don't have necessarily, the healthcare options that families that are in a different tax bracket do. So it tends to be a downhill
it's a
spiral,
cycle,
and they don't even realize it, unfortunately, because one, they trust the government is protecting. They trust the government is making sure that the things they're eating are safe. And it's only now recently that we're realizing that's not the case.
And it's almost like the government's enabling the cycle of sickness and the cycle of destruction, really.
Yep. So here's what they're trying to do. So SNAP recipients will not be able to use benefits to buy energy drinks, which we talked about them before. They're not good for your body. Sweetened beverages with added sugars or sweeteners.
So soda.
Soda, yeah. Carbonated beverage, candy, potato or corn chips, or cookies. So pretty much all the ultra-processed foods.
But you could still buy a lot of stuff in the freezer section and stuff.
You
like
cannot buy, right now with the program right now, the 3 things you cannot buy, it's alcohol, tobacco, and prepared meals. So I don't know.
Meals?
Yeah.
Really?
You cannot buy them.
That's actually brilliant.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's actually pretty good. So that's a good start. So the program is not that bad. It could become better, which is the best part. And that's the cool thing about the government. It's so bad that even little tweaks in it can make a big difference in our population.
No, it's interesting because this is like I tell a lot of patients when I'm talking to them, this is one of the few times or one of the only times in a very long time where the parents are living longer than the kids because the parents grew up in households that cooked proper foods. They sat down to a table where they had vegetables, they had proteins. They didn't eat the crap that we're having now. And the kids that they have been grown up chicken nuggets, pizza, burgers and fries, mac and cheese, just crap for years of their life. And now they're getting the illnesses that we didn't see until someone was 40, 50, 60, and they have it at 18, 19, 20. When you see, you go to a classroom and most of the kids in the classroom are well overweight.
Bro, that's not normal.
It's not normal. Especially that kids are the most active,
Well, they're supposed
really more
to be.
active than we are as adults. But unfortunately, now they're becoming sedentary. They're being fed and enabled by their parents and then their parents by the government, sugars and foods that are just not great for us. And it's just a downward spiral. And it's a shame because, like I said, it affects lower income families more all the way down because then they don't even have the health care to defend their bodies.
Yeah, check this out. So according to the USDA, 20% of SNAP households, most of the households spending on sweetened beverages, desserts, salty snacks, and candy. So 20% of the expenditure is on these crappy things. And sweetened beverages alone accounted for 9.3% of the expenditure.
And what's crazy is I could hear people saying, hey, they might not have time because it might be a single mom who's trying to work. 2, they might not have time to cook.
I can't.
Single moms have been around for a very long time.
Yeah, this is not a new
Listen
thing.
to this, though. So people's excuse is, hey, I don't have time to cook, right? Hannah says, you're busy, right?
I hate that.
How easy is it to learn a couple of recipes that aren't very long to make, like you can prepare very quickly, that are nutritious?
It's not hard.
I mean, salad doesn't take that long
I
to
mean,
make.
It's not that hard.
It's not that
The
hard.
same effort that you put in to binge watch the Kardashians, and the same effort that you put on to
Watch Formula One.
And to be honest, that's what the rush is. They don't have time to cook because they're trying to rush to the couch. You know what I mean? Like,
I like
most
that.
of America,
That's
this
a
is
good
where we are.
tagline.
I've been working hard, sitting at my desk. I need to sit on the couch to watch TV for a few hours. Kids go throw the pizza in the oven. They won't even get up to do it. You go do it.
Yeah.
But it's a shame.
You
because
go do it.
2 vegetables. You pick carrots, green beans, potatoes. These are easy things to cook. You stick it in an oven. You know, you don't even salt and pepper.
You
I'm
can put
not-
an entire potato in an oven.
Boil
and just
it.
cook
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have nephews. I have a nephew. You have your son. I'm sure your son, if let's say you guys are stepping out, gonna grab, I don't know, the mail, and it's far, you're gonna help someone, a neighbor, and you're gonna be out for 15, 20 minutes, and he's hungry. Can he go to the?
He can figure out.
He can figure out and do something for him.
Mm-hmm.
Why is a mom? I mean, you are big enough, young lady or old lady, to have a child, and you're gonna tell me that you don't know how to cook like a normal. I'm not saying like go out and chef out. You know, I'm just saying a dignity, like warm plate that you can put in front of your child. You cannot do that. Like, that's an excuse to me. I'm sorry. I'm so
Well-
tired. We get home late, and you still need to find a way priorities, you know?
Well, and here's the thing. The reason my son can do that at 11, 10, and other kids is because we have good ingredients in our house. And I have things prepared for him that he can put in a toaster oven. And he can make. I make up egg casserole that he can just heat up. And guess what's in it? Egg, cheese, organic beef sausage. Like... Oh, and some shredded organic potatoes. I'm sorry. Like you can put it in the. It can put it in the.
But that's with your parents. I come from my mom being done at work at 5:30, and then they wouldn't pick me up from school until 6:30. I went to a private school, so they will wait for you until your parents get there. So we would get home late, and it's like you. There was something already made from yesterday, or there was something defrosting in the fridge, and it's like, I'm gonna cook something for you. There was always, like, I learned that from my mom, and I'm very thankful. Like, I never had to go to a fast food. I mean, I'm not saying that it was like, wow, like, mom, but there was always something warm. Not that cheap prep that you go to the how do you call it, alacena in English?
Pantry.
To the pantry and grab a potato chips and a hot dog. And, I mean, it's just priorities.
Yeah. And even with the SNAP program and the obesity rates, considering, let's assume that people can't cook. Right, and let's assume they cannot figure out how to cook for themselves. Even if you removed Coke products or Pepsi products out of the equation, that's a huge win.
I think we can start there. That's the easiest way.
Yeah,
That was like the second thing we
Remove
got
the
rid
crap
of.
from your
That's a
pantry.
small start, but listen, we are decades away from
Right.
where the 50s, 60s, 70s when people were cooking. We have this, and I don't care what your tax bracket is or where your income level. You somehow have a phone because the government will also supply them.
Yeah.
And from this phone, I can find any recipe that I need.
And a YouTube video on how to prepare it.
Whether it's a YouTube video,
TikTok.
it's a website, I can look specific. AI, jump on, tell me a recipe for blah, blah. And you can find a recipe and omit any of the things that you don't want in it. Give me a recipe that does not have sugar, that's all healthy, natural, 2 vegetables, boom. And then have it create your shopping list. So that's not an excuse.
But it comes back to what you said, which is like you have to have the right things in your house, right?
Yeah.
So stop buying the pop, stop buying the soda, stop buying the chips. Like, but if you buy potatoes and strawberries and apples and oranges and lettuce and whatever.
Ideally you have freedom of choice. If you want to buy the crap, go for it. If you want to kill yourself, let's do it. Okay. However, if I'm subsidizing, I'm paying as a taxpayer for you to buy Coke products, and then I got to subsidize also your sickness because you spent all your life buying the Coke products that I paid for initially. Now we got a big issue.
Yeah.
True story.
You're
right?
gonna kill yourself with some. your
Don't
own
drag
money.
me down with you.
So don't drag me down with you. I try to do healthy as much as I can. I'm trying to keep my costs low so I don't have to spend a lot of insurance. But if I'm also paying for Medicaid all the time, so you can make whatever choices you want, just like people.
And then you have less money to buy the healthy food.
Well, and you know what? And I really, fresh vegetables are cheap.
I don't know where that concept of healthy food is expensive.
It's not all.
No, the cooking process, it's pre-done and shoved in a box with all the chemicals. That's where it gets expensive. But if you're just picking up the carrots, you're just
Especially
picking up and even if you can hit one of your local farmers markets, I know we don't all have them, but 2 vegetables and a protein. There's your meal. It doesn't need to be
Especially if you
fabulous.
shop in season. Like,
You absolutely should to keep diversity
But
in your
even the
diet.
meat too, Doc, because I mean, think about like a chuck, like a
ground beef.
or chuck,
Ground beef or chuck
ground beef
roast.
or the
Chuck
chuck
roast.
roast.
Yeah.
If you have a big family too, you have a crock pot. I learned that that's not a thing in Puerto Rico. You don't have crock pot. I learned that in the United States.
We don't use that thing.
We
down
don't
there.
use that. It's
We don't
funny.
use
I have
that
a
thing.
ceramic one.
We don't use that thing. We
I
don't
have a
use
ceramic one too,
dishwashers.
but you can make that, and then that lasts for days.
That's
For
bougie.
sure.
And-
And you can do
and
it while
it's
you're
cheap.
at work. You put everything in the
I
pot,
got
you walk
I got one
away.
of them in the crock pot right now.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I mean, it's ideal.
She used to have a friend. Can you tell a story about the crock pot?
I have a funny. Okay, so how I was introduced to the crock pot. This was like 4 years in of being in the United States. I had my
2014.
first roommate, 2014, and then fresh out of college, my friend, she's from Florida, and I thought it was a southern thing, but she had this huge thing where she would put meat in the morning with vegetables, potatoes, and then she would leave to work, and I would like start getting ready in the morning, and I'm like, this crazy lady, and her name is Lindsay. She's probably gonna listen, but it's like, she's gonna try to burn the house. I will turn it off without saying anything. I will turn it off and we'll go to work. She will come in the morning. It's one of those electric too. So once the timer is done, it will go back to off. So she thought, what is up? So she comes the first night and she's like, dang it, like this didn't cook. This terrible. You know when you're thinking the whole day, this is
Yeah,
gonna
you
be
walk
ready.
home and it's gonna be
Exactly.
ready.
So second day, same thing. She turns it on and I'm like, I walk to the thing and I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with her? She left this on. So I turn it off again. So
Because you waste the meat too because it's sitting
she-
out all day.
she comes back and she's like, what the hell? And I hear her. So I walk out and I'm like, what's going on, Lindsay? Do you know why this is off? And I'm like, I turned it off. You're trying to burn the house. She's like, girl, this is a crock pot. I'm like, what is a crock pot? Dinner. You're trying to burn the house. She's like, no, you're not going to burn it. And then that's how I learned what a crock pot is.
When you actually ate a crock pot meal for the first time, you're like,
Forget it.
this is delicious.
So she made me buy a crock pot.
She made you buy a crock pot.
I now have a crock pot. Thank you, Lindsay.
There are wonderful things you can do in the crock
But
pot.
but going back to the conversation, I mean, you can do healthy things. It doesn't cost that much money. At the end of the day, and going back to the SNAP program, they should get rid of soda. They should get rid of candy. They should get rid of Oreos. Anything that's ultra processed that comes in a bag that doesn't have any real nutritional value, get rid of it. And just focus, put your funds towards, because again, you're probably gonna spend a little bit more money in the SNAP program to give them healthier food initially, but then you'll save costs down the road from healthcare in general.
And healthy food makes you do better, right?
Well, and I'm positive. I'm hopeful with this because, I mean, when there was no regulation, we knew, these things are bad for us, sugars and processed foods and preservatives, and yet people are still out there and they're buying them for their kids. So in this particular situation, I'm kind of for it because if we take that away, they have no choice but to get the more healthy options, the foods that are available in the program, and slowly they may be resistant to it, but we always evolve, and over time, sooner or later, they're going to become crock pot families as well. And they'll bitch at first, but at some point, all of a sudden, it's like, I'm a crock pot family.
Yeah.
I threw all the stuff in the pot, I went out, and when I came home, it's hot and
That's
ready.
that's what the SNAP program covered. All right, you
Better
ate
than
it.
Little Caesars, hot and ready.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the new.
It's way better.
And you know what you're getting out of it. Exactly what you put into the pot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm hopeful because it is. It's the kids can't make the smart choices. They really don't understand it.
no.
I don't understand why parents these days are letting the kids make the choices. It's nuts. And even so I do have two nephews and I got several nephews and nieces, but they come over to my house and the parents, okay, well, he only will eat the chicken nuggets and this, and I'm like, thank you, have a good day, I'll see you later. And when I cook, I'm making whatever I'm making,
and you're gonna eat it,
and they eat it. And when they come home, we had salmon and we had a corn and bean salad with some roasted sweet potatoes on the side.
They ate it.
And it's like, yes, because I make the rules at my house.
That's how it worked. That's how it worked.
I love that.
That's how my mom was as well.
So it makes it different. Yeah, it was eat it or get the heck out. Go to your room. And when you're hungry, you'll come out. It'll be here cold, and you're gonna eat that.
Yeah.
You got two
At
problems.
some point, you have to make sure that you're leading them the right way, so that when they're older, they know how to make the choices. Because find me a kid who doesn't select the chips, the soda first.
Right.
Unless they've been taught.
Until they've been taught.
I was gonna say my son wouldn't, but
and I will say I do that. I say that, but then I also will be the uncle who's like, "You ate all your food? I got you M&Ms. Come over here. We have our little bag of M&Ms. We shared the bag of M&Ms.
This is the last time you're gonna get them.
It's very different. I was in the store the other day, and a cute little girl was definitely overweight, and she was fighting with her mom in the aisle because she wanted some chips, and her mom's telling her, "You can't have that. You're on a diet." I'm like, the girl's 6. What the hell is she on a diet? I mean, what is going on? And she's treating, and the girl, I want these. What if I don't want to be on a diet? And I'm looking at the mom like, you do understand. You're in control. You say no, and you introduce the proper something that they can eat that might also be favorable.
That's the exact thing. I say my 10-year-old doesn't eat those things, but guess what? We weren't those people who said, you can't eat anything. You can't do anything. And so it's like, you want M&Ms? Let's find a dye-free, better version of that.
You can find options as well.
Let's do homemade cookies that I can control and sweeten with maple syrup. Let's do maple sugar, and then let's do, you know what I mean? So it's not like you have to be like.
Yeah, or you can do like, for example, cigars. Obviously, I'll do a cigar every so often. In Mexico, when you get a cigar, it has a big picture of a mouth with cancer. Literally. So at least you kind of like think about it twice. In the States, you can get cigars and they don't have that picture. But even if you get like a Coke product, yeah, you can get it, but just put a very fat kid. Like super ugly. So the kids, when they look at it, they refrain from buying it. So I don't want to be that kid.
No, serious. And when it boils into, once again, the SNAP program, the whole idea for that SNAP programming and making sure the kids have food in the first place, ultimately, sugar is a luxury. Soda is a luxury. You don't have to have it. It's not necessary in life. It sucks that that's kind of like how you have to think about it, but it is. And so if you require some assistance with getting the food, yes, let's please help those people get vegetables.
Something has nutritional value.
Nutrition. But if I'm working hard so you can have Oreos, but I maybe am not having Oreos right now because I can't in my budget.
Yeah.
That's
you ain't getting Oreos. Yeah, I agree. I'm all in for this change of the SNAP program. I'll support it all the way.
1 out of every 34 children now has autism.
Ooh, that's a big issue.
When did that happen? And what happened?
I was thinking about that the other day. I was thinking at my high school experience, I don't remember a kid with autism in my grade. Do you guys had anybody with autism?
I saw it on TV.
You had one?
I think it's where I would see autism.
It was very rare.
It's the same thing. I don't remember kids having cancer when I was a kid either.
No, not at all.
Not
And
cancer,
I
not diabetes.
I had a few friends that were fat as well, but it wasn't like
Not
they
very
grew
many.
out of it very quickly. You know?
Because they're out there playing and
Yeah.
everything else. By high school, the chunkier kids
Yeah.
definitely kind of got their
So all
grew
you-
into themselves. That's
Yeah.
what it always was.
You
They'll
grew up-
grow into it.
Yeah.
You know?
So
I heard it a lot.
He'll slim down when he gets older.
So for example, like fat kids, cancer in kids, autism rate. I don't remember.
Diabetes in kids.
Yeah, I don't remember anybody having these things when I was a kid. Like
Well, autism is huge now. It's
is.
all
it's
over
insane,
the place.
and it's grown exponentially. I was
There's
looking at a
schools specifically for kids with autism.
yes, and it's 1 in 34. You say 136.
1 in 34.
134. Probably in the 2000s, it was like 1 in 150, and it keeps getting, and we were talking about this that day. We were like, because the argument with autism rates is that everybody brings up the concept of, well, now we have better screening procedures and we can diagnose it, whereas before we couldn't diagnose it, and therefore there were less numbers. But that is not true.
No. Yeah, when someone has autism, depending on where they are in the spectrum,
Yeah.
A teacher who's in a classroom with 20 students and one is either not able to focus in the same way or pick things up in the same way, they know. But it's crazy. And I mean, right now I have a nephew and a niece that are autistic. I have a cousin who's autistic. They're all under 9 years old.
Yeah,
and not only are there more kids diagnosed with it, but like I feel like the severity has increased greatly.
These nonverbal
Very
autistic kids that have they do a lot of the stimming. That's not normal.
One thing that I would say more than just, seeing these kids, 1 in 33, 1 in 36, whatever.
34, but either
1 in 34.
Today, tomorrow it will be something.
It might change again.
The thing that stuck with me the most, because it's your kid, right? You're going to love them the same,
regardless,
no matter what. Let's say you have 4 kids, 1 is autistic. You're going to love them the equal. But the thing that I think the most is what happens when those parents are gone.
That's a tough one. How are they going to survive?
Especially if they're very high.
That is one of those things that it's like sticks with me. And why wouldn't you want to make a change just because of that reason?
Let's figure this out. Yeah, and that's one of the biggest issues. I know when RFK was, they were drilling him with questions, and Rand Paul talked about it. It's like, hey, our autistic rates are extremely high. Shouldn't we be asking questions right now? Whether it's the vaccines, whether it's the food that we eat, whether it's something in the genes, let's figure this out. This is not a partisan issue. And when we look at autism, the challenge is that it's very tricky.
Yeah.
It's a syndrome, right? And it's usually not caused by one thing, but it's caused by a lot of things at the same time. Yeah. And then they talked about, because I've been looking at this, the medical profession is always going to say it's genetic, because that's their go-to. Every medical doctor, instead of asking questions, are always going to say it's in your gene, and because you have your gene says this, you're going to get that. Okay, but that's not true, right? The new science, epigenetics, tells us that you might have the gene for this, but that gene is going to get expressed or it's going to get turned on based on the choices that you make on a regular basis. And what we're seeing right now with a lot of these autistic kids is it's not only that, but then you got to look at the 3 types of stressors that people go through on a regular basis. You got to look at emotional stress, chemical stress, and you got to look at physical stress. So it's a cumulative effect. So again, the cup it starts from even before the baby's born, right? You're looking at the food that mom ate. You're going to look at the medications that mom was taking. You're going to look at like we talked about, microplastics in the mom's bloodstream, or forever chemicals that have been accumulating that mom. Then the baby is developing the uterus. How much stress did mom go through in the process? Was the baby in good position? Were they all crooked up in there? Did they have then the birthing process? Was it a natural birth? Was it a medicalized, very highly interventional birth? Was it a C-section? They keep stacking up, and then that baby's born, and let's say they have colic, so they give them Marilax, whatever it is, and then they have an ear infection. Instead of letting the body heal, they put antibiotics, disrupting the gut bacteria. Then they get a little bit older, they have a fever, they give them Tylenol. And it's like, it's this perfect storm that is just brewing. And then at the end of the day, every condition that we have is toxicity. It's a toxicity or a deficiency, right? And unfortunately, with these autistic kids, it's usually a toxicity of all these stressors coming together, and the body now goes, and the brain goes into a state of fight or flight, and then the body cannot turn off, or the kid doesn't know where the brakes are, and now we have a big issue.
Doesn't it seem, and I could be wrong, but often it seems like they don't see autism in kids until the kids are a little bit older. Like, and I mean that by not an infant. I mean like 3, 4, 5,
Correct.
6.
Usually it's when they start developing speech. And
that's when they notice
slow
it.
with speech. It's kind of a signal. Let's get them tested to see if that's why.
The output part. Or when we think about, this is all neurology, right? A baby or a kid develops based upon the input that they receive from their 7 senses, right? We have 5 senses and then 2 more. You have the eyesight, the ears, nose, taste, touch, but then you have movement and you have balance.
Oh, okay.
right? So those are the two that people don't talk about, but movement and balance also integrates to the brain to develop the brain, essentially. So they're getting all this senses going in there, and that's forming their brain. But what if the way that these senses come back and the information that goes into your brain gets disrupted? Now they have poor input, therefore the output gets affected. Right. For example, when you look at an autistic kid, they do something called stimming. Stimming is just doing this a lot. What they're trying to do is get input. They're trying to get input back into the brain. And a lot of these kids are either their volume, it's too high, so they're overstimulated, their brain. That's why a lot of these kids, if they're in hectic scenarios or there's a lot of loud music, it'll make it worse. But there's other ones that are the opposite, that need stimulation because they're nonverbal. They don't do anything, So it's at the end of the day, it's an issue with stimulation and output. That's why chiropractic works so well with these kids.
I was going to say, doesn't chiropractic care help a lot? And I would question is if you got infants, because you can't, like, people don't think that you can get an infant adjusted, but you can.
You can.
Sure can.
And,
hours in.
And here's the thing, isn't it, do you think, I should ask, that if you get an infant adjusted along the way, you may never see, even if they had some of those tendencies or genes or whatever you want to say, you might never see it.
Yep, those are the best miracles in chiropractic, the ones that never happen.
That you never even know.
You never knew because you did the right stuff all throughout the way.
I remember we had a patient in Colorado. You remember the Mexican family?
That was tough.
The kid was like 8 or 9 years old, really tall, nonverbal. If anything, he would just be coming in screaming. And the mom, oh my God, beautiful family.
It was tough though.
She was just like, I don't know what to do. I want the best for my kids. I just want to try this out. He would come in, like, same thing. Like, it was just a lot of stimulation. Think about, like, it was a big office, a lot of people, the music coming from the outside too, driving. The kid would be like, like screaming, like throughout the whole thing. Dr. Dan, you would adjust him too, but Dr. Dan and Dr. Andres would adjust this kid, and this kid will like melt in the adjusting room. There were days that the kid, it was just too much, and it was hard to calm him down, and you guys respected that. We're not gonna go too far because sometimes you respect those boundaries. But there were times that the kid will be screaming, get in the adjusting room, and then it will be like,
that's super chill, and that's
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That was my first time seeing something like that. That was amazing.
Yeah, from a chiropractic perspective, because again, when it comes to autism, it's just tough because I mean, I feel like these moms that unfortunately have an autistic kid, these kids are blessed because they have the best moms that they want to do the best thing for them, but there's not a lot of options out there, unfortunately. Right? There's, if anything, they'll go probably to their pediatrician. They'll get a diagnosis. They'll get their label, and that's it. Take these meds, do this thing, do this therapy, and you're done. But chiropractic is great for it because it helps. Number one, those kids are overstimulated and their brain is just firing like a Ferrari, but the body has bicycle brakes. There's different parts of the spine that you can work on to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the braking mechanism of the body. And that would immediately shut down the nervous system and the kid will chill out. And then on the other hand, the ones that are like pretty much stuck on the brake, you do the opposite. You stimulate other areas of the spine, which will open up or turn on different parts of the brain so they can actually go back to their true self. So you can work different parts of the spine and stimulate different sections of it. Chiropractic is a great tool. The question is how many moms know about this, right? The second part is how many of these moms they know that you can actually do a great job with nutrition to help with the function of the brain as well. Detoxing as well. How can detox help these? Let's assume that a lot of the autism or the symptoms were caused by toxicity throughout the process. Do they know how to get rid of this? And again, I think moms with autistic kids are blessed because they do a great job for the kids. They research till the end of their days, but it's just tough. And chiropractic is a great tool for those kids.
Well, and it's interesting too because, as you said, it's toxicity. So those people who don't have children yet, what are some things to be aware of? And I know that you sent me an article not that long ago about the fact that they're looking at infant formula, which a lot of kids use formula now, which also may affect.
That's a big issue. Yeah.
What's going on?
Consumer Reports, they looked at 41 different types of formula brands, and they found that half of them have heavy metals in higher amounts than what the EPA recommends. So again, EPA, corrupt, what is it called?
Corrupt corporation.
Corporation, pretty much, right? Or government agency, right?
Government agency, yeah.
And they're still acknowledging that it's at amounts that are not normal. They're finding that a lot of these formulas have Gen X chemicals, which is the same thing as forever chemicals, the plastics and everything. They just changed the name, by the way, because they say they're better and it's easier for the body to get rid of them, but they're still the same thing. They found allergens in these formulas. So these formulas are actually not healthy.
A lot of them have high fructose corn syrup in them too.
They're terrible, right? So that's and one of the things when it comes to autism, it's toxicity, right? It's that buildup of toxins and the body's way of getting rid of it. And so now RFK and HHS, they're trying to look into these formulas to see what the heck is going on. And hopefully they'll punish those corporations that are putting these heavy metals in them. And probably some of these corporations might not even know that these things are in it, but it's still their fault for not having quality control.
Responsibility, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, just being aware of the fact, like, anybody and everybody who's responsible for kids, who has a niece, who has a nephew, who has anybody, like, just talking about it. Like you were saying earlier, Hennessy's, just being open to the conversation. Because I know, like, often, like, if you find, like, you have somebody, your niece or nephew that has autism, you don't want to be like, oh, have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried? Because people get very defensive. Right. And I get it. It's got to be so challenging.
Hard.
Yeah, they're overwhelmed.
So challenging. So how can we help society in the world? Like, because you don't want to judge people. You don't want to, like, tell them. Because it's not the one-size-fits-all approach necessarily. So what are some things we can do as a culture and as individuals to kind of help with what's going on right now?
First, I would say it would be helpful if we didn't ostracize those children. For sure. We need to teach our kids that there are kids out there that have this condition and that they needed to be treated in a respectful way. That makes their lives infinitely more difficult. And really getting the parents to be active in the kids' lives as well. I try to have the kids be in some sort of a sport so that they're exercising. I try not to judge the parent when the kids are exhibiting a behavior that's not what we're used to. They'll get loud and non-verbally making a lot of noise, and you can't be one of those parents who just look at how their kids are acting.
You can't be judging.
Like, you can't be that type of person. We need to be open as a society, because it all starts here. We don't need the government to dictate how we treat each other. We need to do that all on our own. And then also it ties in that one of the things they found is that mothers, from a prenatal perspective, mothers who are obese or have diabetes are at higher risk of having children with autism.
I didn't know that.
And so full circle,
take care of yourself.
Helping get our society under control and get the diabetes and some of these chronic illnesses is big. And it's bigger than just we have overweight people, because it's tying into so many facets, including things like autism and how it can affect the children.
Have you ever heard of Pottinger's cats?
No.
Never heard of Pottinger's cats? So it's a study, right?
The one where the cat's dead and alive at the same time.
No, it's the one that every generation of cats, as you denature their food, every generation gets exponentially worse.
Oh.
Right?
Wow. Sounds like.
But here's the problem.
Sounds like America.
Exactly. But But here's the problem. You should read the study. It's really fascinating. But here's the problem. I don't remember the exact number, so this is not the exact. But say it took 5 generations to go from, like, healthy to very unhealthy, straight from when they're born. It took, like, double or triple to get back by putting healthy food back in, right? But that's what it is. What you're saying is, you're like, the best thing you can do is make yourself healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've seen some articles talk about Tylenol consumption, medication consumption as well throughout the pregnancy can affect and increase the chances of having an autistic kid as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, even it's kind of like that whole what is it, the interplay between an individual's genetic makeup and then the environmental exposures together that just throw everything out of whack. It's tough. Autism's tough.
Yeah, that's a tough
what
one.
do you think, as somebody who wants to be a mom someday, have kids someday, what do you do now to help your child that you don't even have yet?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I do it already. I exercise. I played sports my whole life, and I think that was ingrained in me with my dad, my brother, my family in general, encouraging me to not just, I mean, you were saying it earlier, when we were kids, we need an outlet. It's not just school. It's you have to have another part in your life where that energy can put into something, and that develops other skills like leadership and stuff. But now growing up, I remember my dad always telling me, once you hit 30 as a woman, your body's gonna change. You're young now, but you gotta, and he was always planting that seed in me, like, you know, talking to your kids. Your kids are sponges. You know, what you pour into them, the way you act. I remember things that my mom would tell me when I was 10. And now I'm like, okay, like I'm past 30. I want to build a family. I need to make sure that I'm exercising, that I'm eating right. Because I want to set myself up for success, not failure. And then you said it, you have to start now.
Eating well.
So my kids.
And reducing toxicity as well. Like you're big on that thing. When it comes to products of the kitchen, of the bathroom, you're always trying to figure out, what does this thing have, and can it affect my hormones, and can it disrupt my endocrine system?
But you're not exempt, because babies
it's both sides.
50%.
Right.
But I feel like so many dads go, well, it's not up to me, it's up to them.
But
but it's not. It's 50% you.
Sometimes like sometimes I know, like, you know, something, I mean, I have it, but something as simple as having Wi-Fi in your house.
Turn it off at night, though.
Huh?
Seriously, turn it off.
I mean,
that's go to bed very late.
That's a good idea, but sometimes, you know,
you can set a timer on it. No, literally, you can get one of those timers where it turns those.
We got to bring that lady that deals with EMF.
Yeah.
So she can.
We need, and I think I remember you guys talking about that too.
You just put a timer. You know those timers, those manual timers that turn like Christmas lights on and off.
Oh,
you
I
can
know what you're
literally
talking about.
plug it in to your Wi-Fi router, and that way, say you stay up until 10 reading, well, you can set it so it turns off at 11 and turns off at 4 and turns back on at 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, at least then you got 5 hours where EMFs aren't.
It's not messing you up.
That's a good idea. And then also, like, the computer. Sometimes you have your computer on you, and I'm like, just put that on the table. Don't put that.
But they also have these shielding blankets you can put on, and then you can put it, or mats.
Is it made out of lead or something? Cause
it's something that helps to keep the radiation from going straight to your skin. So.
But anyway, now just take care of yourself and
take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself.
Reducing toxins, toxicity, stress levels. I think prepping your body for pregnancy for a mom is probably going to be as important as taking care of themselves throughout the pregnancy. But that prep, where, I mean, you cannot expect to live an unhealthy life till you're 29 and then trying to fix everything while they're pregnant. It's extremely hard. You'll see. I think, and again, I'm not in the position to tell moms what to do, obviously, but I think if I was a mom, right, I would start to prep my body for it and make sure that I start to make the healthy decisions now, so when the moment happens, that my body has the best chances of delivering a healthy baby.
And if for some reason that doesn't happen, don't stop. It's the same thing we said earlier.
I did my work.
Well, and here's the thing. Don't say, oh, it's hopeless, I can't do anything. Take to go get chiropractic care.
Yeah,
Start
keep
eating
doing
healthy
it.
food
This is
now.
what we got.
Any last words?
No, I think there's hope for a lot of these autistic kids, but I highly encourage people to keep pushing and try to figure out, why is this happening? Don't take what the government is saying for what it is. I don't want people saying it's like, yeah, we have higher rates just because we have genetics, or because what was I was saying earlier? Because our screening systems have gotten better. It's like, no, we got to ask the tough questions. That's what science is there, you know, so.